Thank you so much for joining us here at WCQR's Good News. I'm Christian Studer, and we're here with Madeline Gosey. She is a local high school teacher, and we are going to be talking about the concerns, the issues, as well as some good things, some hope, some good news that is happening right now in our community.
My name is Madeline Gosey. I've been teaching high school. This will be my third year of teaching, so I'm relatively new to this, but I feel like I've gotten somewhat of a grasp over just the kids and the high schoolers here. Did not grow up in this area, went to college in this area, love John City, love this community.
So with kids going back to school, with the fear, or what fears do you have, with kids going in person or even distance learning as well?
Yeah, I think one of online learning hit us very quickly in the spring. All of us, it was all a new playing field. I just kept reminding parents and students that we're all learning this together because none of us knew what we were doing. I was not trained to teach online. The kids were not trained to be all virtual. That's not what ideally we would do. And I think we've learned through this process like how important it is for kids to be in school and be around other kids, to be like with the teachers, and so I think we're all just don't really know what this is going to look like. We know that the community and the health department and different leaders in the schools are trying to make the best decisions to keep us safe, to keep the kids safe. But I feel like one of the biggest fears for kids is there's just so many fears and they don't really know what to believe because social media outlets say so many different things. We haven't really been able to communicate with the kids because we don't know who's going to be our students this next year. And so they're kind of relying on the school systems as well as social media and the news. And those are all different messages that are being sent out. And just hearing like irrational fears of things that we go to, like every single day we interact with germs, but the innocence of not really trying to understand stuff for yourself and just believing what other people have to say. Like kids just soak up things. They like to pretend like they have their own opinions, but they really are listening and soaking everything up all the time. So it's, I think, so important during this time to just try to speak as much truth and as much confidence into our kids and our teachers and our communities and our parents because the hard thing is we don't know a lot of truth. We don't understand this virus. We don't understand how the impact is going to be fully, but try to remain as like calm and because even just pre us not having or pre-virtual learning in the spring, the things that I was hearing from my students about COVID were crazy, and I had to like stop and be like, let's start over. Let's try to think about where this is coming from. So I think like just biggest fears is sanitation of things, the not really knowing what week by week things are going to look like. Masks, I know, is a huge fear for kids, just not wanting to wear them, if they even work, what's the purpose of them, trying to like still be with friends and be social, but then also having to keep a distance, and just not really knowing what their education is going to look like too, and just how they're going to pass classes and how they're going to interact with teachers when we go back and forth. So like we may go back from being in school to not, and vice versa.
Nice, awesome. So you mentioned the issue with social media and how kids, I mean, let's face it, so many high schoolers, if not all high schoolers, are on some sort of social media, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. I'm probably missing a few, but with that being their primary source potentially of information, how should we as parents help maybe sift through that? Because without taking social media away completely, how can we make sure that our kids' views of COVID, of the fears that we have, is a rational and valid fear and not something that is just off the wall, crazy?
Yeah. Well, as an educator, my immediate reaction is encourage them to go do research, encourage them to not just see an article that someone takes a snippet of and posts on TikTok or posts on Instagram or whatever, but like actually go and do the research, look at the guidelines that are being posted, look at the articles that people are taking stuff from, and just learning about it, trying to gain a bigger perspective of what this is. I think it's education is so powerful, knowledge is so powerful, and if we don't educate ourselves and we are not trying to pursue knowledge about even our own bodies and how to cough in your sleep or how to wear a mask or how to wash your hands properly, because I teach high schoolers how to wash their hands properly. So just like looking, doing research, trying to as much possible not let the fear and what hundreds and millions of people are saying around us drive your knowledge. And I think that's a life lesson that they can continue on with, of just always pursuing knowledge, always getting different perspectives. Don't just believe this person because they seem like the best person to believe. Try to gain lots of different perspectives, and just trusting, I think, trusting teachers, trusting leadership in the school systems, trusting mayors, as much as like you can disagree with stuff or have trouble and have your own opinions, just knowing that and having comfort that people who are making these decisions are trying to have your kids' perspectives. Like they're thinking about it as they're making these decisions. But I think just trying to foster a unity, like in our community, trying to not be divisive as much as possible, because what I've noticed about this sickness is that it's so divisive. It's almost like my husband and I have talked about how it's almost like a new leprosy. Once someone has it, you separate from them. There's a lot of fear. It's unclean. You can't like interact with people, and there's so much unknown too that it creates a lot of division. People have their opinions about what they should do and should not do. And so I think if we can encourage our kids to try to be for each other and trying to be for being together and just having as positive of a outlook on this as possible is going to be so influential moving forward. And if we can unite as a community and just trying to support and instill like Christian values into our kids, have those really awesome conversations with our kids about we're not meant to fear. Like God is so much bigger than this. Like we are not meant to there's so many things that are happening around us every day that we could live in fear for, and we can't, because worry and fear and anxiety are not of God. And if we can approach each day with confidence and strength that even if we do get the virus, like He will be with us and He has a bigger plan in this, and try and just lean into those strengths of Jesus and what He's spoken to us. And yeah, I think that's how I'm going to lead for my family, and I think can be really powerful if we as a community do that together.
That's awesome. So now during the shutdown, because I mean schools were still going on when schools shut down, what was something, there was a lot of fear then and a lot of negativity, but what was something good that you saw happen during the shutdown? Maybe it was a conversation with a student, or maybe it was relationships that were built, or stuff that you saw where you just saw God show up through that, or where you saw some hope. Because I believe, I really believe that if we look for it, we can see hope and we can see Jesus in every situation. So what would you say to that, to, the what was the good during the shutdown?
Yeah. There was so much negativity, and I think if you focus on the greater perspective, you can get really boggled down by the negativity. But I truly believe like the individual stories are the things that are going to encourage us and drive us forward. I was amazed by some of my kids who, when they made the decision not to, as a state, to not count grades against the students unless it benefited them, I still had kids with A's and B's working and doing better, and they wanted to learn. And I actually had the ability to kind of create more creative lessons, because it wasn't, the end of the year just looked so much different without state testing and all that stuff. And so I was able to create curriculum that got the kids interested in modern day events and got them talking and being able to express themselves. And that was just so cool to see like their hope. I had a good amount of seniors this year, and they missed track season, and they missed all of like sport, like soccer season, and just these different huge places in their life, cheer season, dance season, and they had such a positive perspective on it, and they were still just so positive about education and excited. It hurt, like it wasn't easy, but they just were excited to be able to do what they want to do, and they were like, we wish we could still be in class, but we understand of what's going on. So I think that brings a lot of hope, is that while sometimes we hear from kids how negative and horrible and I don't like learning, like there were kids that thrived during this time. I had students who were not doing super well at the beginning of the semester, last semester, and were able to pull their grades up to a passing grade or higher because they were able to do more intensive, like one-on-one learning and do it at their own pace. And that was just super hopeful for me. So while there's so many different challenges, like you said, there still are these little bits of hope, even just to see like graduation still happen.
Yeah.
That's such a huge monumental time in a kid's life, is to pass through high school, and just to still see that happen in so many different school systems was so encouraging, and to be able to support them and encourage them, and to celebrate our seniors too, doing virtual graduations and celebrating different kids throughout the week and where they were going to school or what they were doing post high school was just was really, really awesome.
Very cool. That is really cool. So I love the part where you were talking about you were able to be very creative during the learning during this time. So I know a lot of kids are going to be virtually learning. They're still going to be in-person stuff, hopefully, but there is going to be virtual learning. So how, as teachers, are you guys kind of bringing the creativity to that, to maybe not use it as a burden or something like, we have to do this, we don't want to, but we have to. How are you going to use it as like, okay, some of these kids are actually going to be a lot better off virtual learning than they would be in person, because maybe they need more of that one-on-one, or they need more of their pace. I mean, speaking personally, I was homeschooled for a little while because I was not the smartest kid and needed, honestly, it was a rough time, but I was able to learn at my own pace. And once I got into high school and college, I thrived. So for me, it was very beneficial to kind of go as my own pace. But what, as teachers, are you maybe potentially even excited about as far as the virtual aspect for some of the kids?
Yeah, I would say it's like doing virtual learning is something that I was not trained for as a teacher, and it definitely is taking a lot of adjustment, and I'm not 100% on board with that.
Yeah.
I would much rather, like, just seeing my students, I'm so excited whenever that day happens, like just seeing them and being able to just have face-to-face contact is something that I'm just over the moon about. So virtual learning is definitely not my, like, this is for every kid and like this is the way to go. But I do agree. Like I did some homeschooling growing up a little bit for a few years, and there are some kids who really thrive in that setting, who are able to explore a little bit more, who are able to go at their own pace, to seek out help for people from teachers and stuff. So that is definitely something that can be really beneficial for kids. But definitely, like the creative aspect, there's so many different programs that became free and available to teachers during this time, which is a huge blessing.
That's awesome.
And so we were able to kind of use some of those programs to get creative, teach our content in a new way, and just be able to encourage like exploration and creativity on that side. I was able to kind of utilize them being home. I did an activity with my kids where they interviewed their parents, interviewed grandparents on certain presidents, like the last 7-8 presidents that actually have people who have lived during that time, and interview family. And they probably would not have been able to do that as easily if they were in the school. Yeah. So them being able to talk, I love that. Loved hearing their interview questions and just the different conversations they have with their kids. So there's definitely opportunity, creativity. It's having that perspective as teachers. I think it's really easy to get boggled down by the frustration and having to do extra work and different things. But if we can look at it in a positive way, this is an opportunity to learn for us, because we are, as teachers, we are constant learners. And just to be able to expand our creativity of how to teach, I think is really cool too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now kind of adding on to that a little bit, as parents, if personally, mine and my wife's decision, our son will be learning virtually for at least a little while. But as parents of students that are going to be virtually learning, what is stuff that we can do to help you? Because you are learning this as you go. This is not something that you were taught in school. So what can we do to help guide the kids to help make sure that there is no loss of education, that and there's also less headache for you. I mean, honestly, if parents were to help you help their kids, what would you say is the most important thing as a parent that their child is going to be learning virtually? What can they do to help the process for you as well as help the process for their child?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my biggest, in the spring, I wrote my parents and I was like, I understand you all are not teachers and I understand this is not normal. And so there's so much grace. So I think one of the biggest things is giving yourself grace as a parent. You did not get trained to be a teacher, but also giving teachers grace, giving your students grace because they don't have the teacher. I don't teach math, but I know math was really hard to teach virtually because they're doing the problems together and they're interacting with their teacher. And I heard parents talk about how math is one of those hard subjects because you forget everything that you've learned in grade school. I think just offering grace to yourself, offering grace to your kid, offering grace to your teacher is a huge thing. But also be in communication as much as you can with the teacher. I much rather, as a teacher, to have the parents reach out to me. We're going to be in as much communication with you as we can, but reach out, send us emails, send us questions. The most frustrating thing as a teacher is to realize that a parent or a student was struggling with something for days and didn't communicate. Because I'm like, oh, I could have helped you. It could have been a helping tool. And there's Zoom, different ways that I can see your screen. I did that with so many kids is let me see your screen. Let me tell you exactly how to do it. So be in communication with teachers, express concerns, be nice, please. And just say it in a very positive way and just give grace, but also just be in communication, show you're for your student, show that you care and that you want the best for your kid. There were a lot of parents that I reached out, I didn't hear at all from the entire virtual learning. And that was really hard because and I understand parents have jobs and different things going on, but I couldn't communicate with them and try to encourage them and hear from them. So I think just reaching out to teachers as much as possible, open that line from the beginning. I would just say that for any teaching moving forward. Always make sure you are in communication with teachers. And then just having grace with yourself, having grace with your kids. It's going to be frustrating. And I've heard that from so many parents of how just the patience that it takes to teach as well after you've just worked all day kind of thing. So those are the things that I would encourage parents right now.
Thank you so much for listening or watching WCQR's Good News. And if you're not watching, if you're listening right now, we are on YouTube. You can follow us and subscribe at WCQR FM and see our Good News videos every single week. This week, Madeline talked about the schools. She talked about specific issues and struggles that teachers and parents are going to be facing, but she also addressed the hope. The good stuff that is happening right now, because we need to focus on that. There's so much negativity. There's so many struggles that we need to look for that hope, look for that good news, and focus on that. We love y'all and see you next week.